This is Dolynny TV. Good morning and welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel. I am nice and asleep for this one, but that's exactly why we're doing it right here, right now. I had a really wacky sleep last night, trying to sleep in a little bit extra based on not being at work today, and then all of a sudden, here I am, middle of my sleep dreaming about a Darnell Nurse trade. Now, we haven't talked about a Darnell Nurse trade in a long while because, of course, he got re signed to that contract extension and that solved all the issues 5.6 for 2 years each year. And away we went, and no longer was it a question if the Oilers would solve some other problems elsewhere by trading Darnell Nurse, which honestly, you don't know how that would have played out if they would have done that for the play-ins. We might have won the Stanley Cup. I don't know. I'm not sitting here and blaming Darnell Nurse the sole problem, but right, whatever else he acquired to solve the problem could have solved a potential problem. That said, my friends, here I am dreaming about a Darnell Nurse trade. Legitimately, that's, I guess, how dedicated to the craft I am. I wouldn't say that, but you get where I'm going. That's maybe how much I'm missing hockey and missing the action of hockey and missing trades, is that they're coming to me in my sleep. And I mean, this is a ridiculous thing. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like talking about this isn't completely ridiculous, but if you've got anything better to talk about than anything I've already covered at this point, that's just reoccurring news like the Canadian division or whatever. I saw that in the Edmonton Journal, and they made some very good arguments. They had some stats to back up why the Oilers should be number one this year. But I mean, I can talk about the Canadian division for the seventh time in the past 2 months if you'd like me to, or we can talk about some other stuff that gets our brains thinking, kind of looking at things a different way. Now, this is a trade, obviously, we could have looked at probably last year, if I remind myself correctly. Let me just go here for a second and take a look at what I have, because I've already talked about this, but again, it's as I have titled in the name of the video, a Dumba trade would be tough to make for the Oilers. That's legitimately the screen, what the text says on my thumbnail, and that's from the 2019-2020 Edmonton Oilers discussions. And honestly, I don't need to look at what I proposed for a trade offer back then. What I do need to look at is simply Darnell Nurse for Matt Dumba. That's the brain idea that came to me in my sleep. So that's what we're talking about. Sorry if you don't like it. Is what it is. It's just something that popped in my head while I was dead asleep last night. And I figure, you know what else do we got to do here on Friday morning at 9:12 in the morning? Because honestly, I'll tell you what a lot of people are either doing right now. If you're under 18, but you're old enough to have a YouTube account, or should be old enough to have a YouTube account, you're working from home, you're doing school online, and you're probably taking 15 minutes right now to sit here and discuss things with me. If you're over 18, you might be working from home, or you might be catching this while you're on the crapper at work, or I don't know. I don't know what kind of audience Dolynny TV has at 9:12 in the morning on a Friday morning. I don't. That's not a time I post. So here I am nammering on about nothing. Let's get to it. Darnell Nurse, Matt Dumba. What do we know? Well, Darnell Nurse, $5.6 million contract. Matt Dumba, $6 million contract. Does that really even matter in any of this made-up argument that I'm going to have done here? Not really, but that just is, I love to tell you about the cap numbers and make things reality. Again, that would probably date back to my Dumba trade would be tough for the Oilers to make. So that's why I'm just mentioning salary. Now, the thing that kind of links these two guys is they were drafted in back-to-back years. Dumba in 2012 and Darnell Nurse in 2013, both first round, 7th overall. That's the interesting part. I mean, I don't think I could have told you that. I pay attention sometimes, but I thought Darnell Nurse was the number 8 overall pick, so shame on me. But you look at Darnell Nurse, he actually, over the course of his career, is doing not too bad. He's at 121 points in 350 games for a total of a .346 points per game. You look at Matt Dumba, who's had 174 points in 411 games, and that's a .423 points per game average. So Matt Dumba, the substantially more in terms of defensemen. I'm not talking in terms of all NHL. I'm talking in terms of defensemen. The more offensive guy, Matt Dumba, past year went down to 6 goals, but in the past several years has had a total of 10 goals or more dating back to 2015-16. So that's the other interesting side. You want to talk playoffs a little bit here, just because I did make reference to that. Matt Dumba has seen the playoffs with the Minnesota Wild for 4 straight years from 14 to 18. And then, of course, this year in the play-in round, 2019 to 2020, 25 minutes a night, and he has averaged over 23 minutes a night in at least, let's see here, 14 games in his career in the playoffs, and he has a total of 9 points in 30 games. Does any of this really matter? No, of course it doesn't, because it's all points. We want to talk about driving the play and being a good defenseman. While Matt Dumba, historically over the course of his career, has been within a 1.5 of even Corsi 4, or else exceeding Corsi 4 and actually being more of a puck possession driving player than a defenseman defending against players driving possession into his own end. And you look at this as well. The other side is Matt Dumba. Problem is, on ice save percentage, so when he's on the ice, the goaltender's save percentage has dramatically dipped the past couple of years by a full, I'd say almost full 2 points overall in the past 2 years, compared to the 91.4 on ice save percentage the goalie's had typically over the first few years of his career, as opposed to the 890s or 89s that he's now in. So let's take a look at what that means for Darnell Nurse, who has, other than his 2 games in the NHL in 14-15, never had an on-ice save percentage below 9.04 or 90.4. So 904 save percentage when Darnell Nurse is on the ice. Darnell Nurse in the NHL playoffs? Well, you know what? 13 games played, 17-25 back then in 16-17, and 24-02 in 19-20. So that's just what you need to know there as well for Darnell Nurse. The interesting part that I really find here is Darnell Nurse at even strength is not a possession driving player. And everybody likes to say, well, Darnell Nurse, he plays with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, that's why his stats are so high and stuff. Well, I mean, that would clearly have to be an argument in play here when you look at his Corsi 4 percentage. He has had a total of 2 seasons above 50% puck possession driven, right? Or puck possession driven against. And Darnell Nurse last year, 47.9, 46.8 in that category. That is really rough. The Fenwick numbers are just about the same roughness, and on-ice goals for the past year in 71 games played for Darnell Nurse, 74 goals against. Matt Dumba in 69 games, 59 on-ice goals for against. Or is that goals for? Hold on. Goals for, well, I don't even, oh, okay, never mind. I read that completely wrong. On ice goals for, 59 for Matt Dumba. On ice goals for, 74 for Darnell Nurse. So that backs up that claim. Sorry. Got it reversed in my head. Didn't see the A, but still went with the A. So, I mean, Darnell Nurse, a guy that we're always scoring goals on the ice, but still somehow is spending way more than half of his time in the defensive zone defending. So make of that what you will, I guess you could say. And of course, Matt Dumba's on ice save percentage. That's another argument you can use. And if you really want to look at something interesting here, is the expected goals for when this player was on ice at even strength. Matt Dumba, 2019-2020, 50.3. So he outdid his on ice goals for at even strength, 59 to the 50.3. So Matt Dumba exceeds expectations, but I mean that's what 50.3 to 50. What is it? 50.3 to 59. Yeah, okay. And then Darnell Nurse sits here, goals for 63.4 expected, and he ends up scoring those 77 or 74. And then there is on ice goals against, 77 for Mr. Darnell Nurse to Matt Dumba's 67. So you see now the numbers flip a little bit here, and goals against, 45.7 was the expected goals against for Matt Dumba this season, 67. So that's almost a 21 jump. And for Darnell Nurse, 65.1 goals against. Darnell Nurse, 77 goals against on ice. So you see those numbers are a little mysterious to me, but again, you can kind of make any argument you want. Matt Dumba playing 22-30 a night, and of course Darnell Nurse playing 23-27, so almost a full minute of ice time per game more. So the question is, that's the stats, that's what you need to know. In Tyson's made-up dreamland of who wins a trade between the Minnesota Wild and the Edmonton Oilers for Darnell Nurse, Matt Dumba, you can take some subjective things, make them what you want, but end of the day, realistically, these guys are pretty similar, right? Matt Dumba, that more offensive, that makes up for maybe a little bit more gap on the defensive end of the advanced analytics. And then you got Darnell Nurse, who plays a little bit more, doesn't score as many points, but kind of holds his own in terms of being on the ice for goals and goals against. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave this up to you. I sit here and just simply talk about it. My recommendation is it's a pretty even straight across trade. The big thing here is last year it would have solved a need for the Oilers that they had prior to signing Tyson Barrie in October, in the fact that Matt Dumba is a right-hand shot defenseman. Darnell Nurse, left-hand shot defenseman. If the Oilers make this trade now, they simply lose. And not very often the Oilers would lose a trade for a high-end right-hand shot defenseman, especially by trading a left-hand shot D. But with Oscar Klefbom mode, if this trade were to happen this year, it's game over. Now, obviously, you can't talk about making this trade 2 to 3 years down the road, because then I would need to recap the analytics, the stats, and everything, and give you a better recommendation then. But this is just something I wanted to explore, give you a kind of a comparison, give you an idea of something to talk about with your friends. Would you do a Darnell Nurse for Matt Dumba trade? Right-hand shot, left-hand shot D-man. That's what makes the difference. Bear, Larson, and Barrie. Do you have room for Dumba? You don't. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tyson. This is Dolynny TV. Thanks for coming along on this crazy journey with me. Yes, I'm wearing my Coyotes shirt. Is it cold in the house? Because it's going to be during the day. I'm home and I've got the thermostat set to 15 degrees while I'm not at home. Yes, it's going to be cold, so that means the best t-shirt, the warmest t-shirt I have has got to be on. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm up on out of here.